Hi folks, if you're new on my channel, I will be posting videos about the development of my various trees as bonsai. I'll be posting videos with progress, maybe the occasional tip or technique that I use to grow my trees into bonsai, and I hope you find these videos useful. Okay, so it's almost Christmas now, and I've been searching around the garden for some jobs to do, and I realised that I need to finish chopping a couple of trees that I got from a tree and shrub nursery. They were dirt cheap, and I rough cut them to get them into the boot of the car, and now's the time to chop them again at a better place to enable the next section of trunk and or the branches to grow in the spring. So the one that I've got here is a field maple or hedge maple, Acer campestre. In the nursery it was well over 10 feet tall, and I've chopped it here just to get it into the car. If I were to leave this in the spring, we'll probably get lots of buds back on the trunk along here and loads of growth up at this area, but actually we don't want that, because the section down below, this section of the trunk here, is as thick as I want it. Actually, I don't want to let stuff grow to continue to thicken down here. This is perfectly okay. So what I'm going to do today is chop around here, cut this off so that in the spring, when growth commences, all the growth is directed through what's left here and any new buds that pop. Right, let's get to it. It's quite a hefty piece of wood, so I'm going to crack out the pruning saw, and I'm going to rough cut, leaving approximately 1 centimetre above the finished height. And once this is cut off, the trunk's going to die back a little bit, and hopefully we'll get another flush of buds in the spring. Once the trunk has finished compartmentalising the wound, we'll come in at a later date and use a Dremel type tool to tidy up the chop so it doesn't just look like one flat level cut. Right, off we go then. I'm supporting the tree, so we don't want too many vibrations rocking, as I saw. I'm not forcing the saw through, I'm letting the saw do the cutting. I'm not pushing too hard, it's just a single finger of pressure. We're not in any rush to get the saw through, we'll just plod along nice and steady, being careful not to pull the saw out again and damage the branches that we'll leave behind and hopefully grow on as the next leader. It's quite a mild day today actually. The sun's out, although you wouldn't know it's sat here in the shade. Almost there. Get nice and steady now, because we didn't want to do that. Okay, there it goes. Yeah, so I got this, considering it was such a tall tree, I got it quite cheap actually, because there was a section of damage, yeah, it's quite a result to get that. It's got a reasonably good base. There's a couple of really vigorous roots down there, and we'll come to repot it in the spring, work the roots then, and see what we've got underneath. So as you can see, we've got about, I don't know, probably a bit more than 1 centimetre above the branches that are going to remain. And what will happen is there'll be some dieback, and the tree will compartmentalise the wound, which essentially means it seals off the wound, and there'll be a divide between dead tissue and live tissue. Okay, all this talk of compartmentalisation then, I just thought I'd show you a close-up of this tree, and along the side of the tree there was an area of damage along the trunk, and you can see where the wound started to callus over here, and there's the heartwood that was exposed. And you can see these dark lines. This is compartmentalisation in action. All along this wound, what the tree has done is sealed off the area of dead tissue from the area of live tissue. You can see the difference in colour. This wood's dry and dead, this wood is moist and live. And it's analogous to a scab that we develop when we cut ourselves. This barrier is the tree's attempt at sealing off the outside world from the living tissue. As you can see, it's done quite a good job of it. There's a very clear line. It helps to prevent rot penetrating. If there were logic behind it, the logic would be that it slows down the decay of the dead tissue, hopefully long enough for the live tissue to roll in and close up and form a seal again from the outside world. Once that compartmentalisation has taken place, I'll come in with a carving tool and we'll carve a bit of interest to make this look like it happened naturally. Maybe there was a lightning strike or a windy day and the existing trunk blew down. Some kind of event in nature occurred, and we'll make this look interesting rather than like I've just come along and sawed through it. Okay, so this one is a European hornbeam, Carpinus betulus. As you can see, this one's got quite a lot of movement in the trunk. It's growing all over the place, and that movement actually continued right up. It was growing in amongst several others, and it had sort of woven around all the other trees that were next to it, and that's created this quite interesting movement. Again, chopped it to get it into the car. After chopping it to get into the car, we've had quite a lot of buds break on the trunk, which is excellent. We've got these branches low down, which I think I'm going to leave for the time being, let those grow, and they'll help thicken the trunk base. So the question is, where shall I chop this? I've been thinking a lot about this one. It does have some fantastic, interesting movement. The trouble is it doesn't have a lot of taper. The thickness, the width of the trunk is very gradually tapering, but not enough, I think, to give us a really convincing bonsai image at the moment. We can add some taper with the use of sacrifice branches, and that involves having a branch grow and then just letting it grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and what that does is it thickens the trunk below where the branch emerges. The trouble with using sacrifice branches is when you cut them off, you're left with a scar. I don't actually mind having some scars, but it's just something to be aware of. I think as fantastic as this movement is, I think this is too tall a trunk for this tree. I'm going to chop here. We've got some buds around this area. If I chop here, those buds will form another trunk leader and will grow an apex, and we'll get some branches growing. And this one can be a more elegant tree. Not all trees have to taper radically. We'll just grow this one as a slower tapering, interesting movement type of tree. I'm going to cut a little bit above where I perhaps want the finished transition to be, to allow the tree to die back a little and compartmentalise the wound. So I think there's about right. Such a shame to cut that piece off. On both of these trees I haven't created an angled sloping cut. I've cut perpendicular. I've cut straight through the trunk. Using an angled cut we would be able to create a nice transition of taper from thick to thinner. The trouble is, if you do that on the initial chop, you create a much larger surface area of the cut, and so it becomes a lot less predictable how far back the tree will compartmentalise. Will it die back from the point, somewhere along the point, or will it continue to die back from the finish of the cut? And where's that going to happen? I think it's best to chop straight across the trunk, let the tree deal with that, push out new growth, then we can come in and clean it up, carve it out so that it transitions nicely. The next time we see either of these trees will probably be when we come to work the roots. We'll get them out of these pots, see how the roots are looking, and go from there. It's a nice short and sweet update today. Only a little bit of work to be done, and I look forward to updating you with these trees' progress in the future. Thanks for watching.